welcome to the first of our first-time buyer case study series. The purpose of this series is to demystify the property purchasing journey for first-time buyers in Scotland, and we're going to be chatting to real first-time buyers who are buying in the Edinburgh area, so that stretches out to Edinburgh, the Lothians, Fife and the Scottish borders. And today I'm joined by Caitlin Meaney, who is actually from one of our ESPC solicitor estate agency member firms, Warners. But you're also here as a first-time buyer to kind of talk through your process. So thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So Caitlin, I thought the first thing that we would want to chat through is when did you decide that you were ready to buy, and what was kind of the first steps that you took?
Yeah, I mean, it's been something we've discussed for kind of about a year now, working out areas and things that we were looking, but ultimately for us it was when the rent cap was lifted in April. We've been renting for 2.5 years and we decided actually I think maybe now's the time. It was a push that we needed to start looking, obviously with the rent increase coming in. Monthly payments were going to be kind of stretching us upwards, and we thought why not kind of use that money to be paying off our own mortgage and get our own place.
Yeah, absolutely. And so did you I don't know, did you go to see a mortgage advisor
That
first?
was the very first step that we did, was we kind of appointed a mortgage broker. That was back kind of April time. We went in, had a chat with them. They ran through kind of what was affordable for us based on the kind of rent that we were paying just now, obviously what it would be when the rent increased, just to give us an idea of what the monthly payments would be on the kind of affordability that we have. And also just to run through options, because as first-time buyers there's a lot of options out there that people aren't aware of. Things like obviously the reintroduction of the lift scheme that's just come in, 5% deposits, all these sorts of things that a lot of people aren't aware of. Kind of spoke through those options with us and kind of gave us that confidence to start kind of really considering going to view properties and offering.
Yeah, and so you mentioned that obviously the rent cap lifting was your kind of big push.
Yeah.
So when you went to speak to your mortgage advisor, did you find that your monthly payments on a mortgage would actually be less or around about the same as your rent?
They were working out about the same as to what we were paying. I mean, we were paying a kind of standard 2-bedroom property in Edinburgh that we were renting. They were coming out about the same, if not slightly cheaper, than what we were going to be paying, obviously, with the rent increase. So it was useful just to know that information, to kind of make that point of, okay, actually, it's potentially going to save us a bit of money being able to move in and buy something ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, do you guys been saving up for a really long time, or was it just in that kind of 2 years that you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I appreciate that renting and trying to save is sometimes difficult, when you've maybe not got a huge amount of flexible income, but, we were just putting, a couple of £100 away, money where we could every month for a couple of years, obviously to try and kind of build up the savings pot that we had. And again, it was helpful speaking to the broker on that, because actually, he looked at the 5% deposit option for us, and we then realised actually we're not going to have to use all of our savings for, the full amount of deposit. We would then have extra money to be able to play with, and I think that was, that was hugely important for us, because we didn't want to completely stretch out our savings at that point, because ultimately, we didn't have a lot to play with. So, it's trying to make the most of, what we had and use it as best we could.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of first-time buyers are in that situation. I remember when I bought for the first time as well, you don't want to absolutely, spend every single penny on the deposit, just because you want to buy things like furniture and how much you're getting and things like that. So obviously you've got a bit of experience about knowing about the process because you work within a solicitor estate agent, but what were your expectations about the buying process, and how maybe were you surprised during the process?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been in my role as a purchase negotiator for over a year now, and bought for over kind of 500 clients. So I know the process inside and out, but ultimately each person's journey is different. Some people will take 6 to 12 months to be able to secure their first property, whilst they kind of look at multiple different properties in the area, kind of styles, all that sort of thing. For us, it happened a lot quicker than we expected. We'd only been to see around kind of 4 to 5 properties before we found the one that we felt was right for us. And there was that kind of element of disappointment sometimes when you go and you think that you really like the property, you go in and you view it, and actually it doesn't work, or you're outbid, or you're not quick enough. All these things happen. But yeah, for us it was a quicker process than we were expecting. But that's not to say that everybody's process is also going to be as quick. I have multiple clients that I deal with that I've been trying to buy for a long period of time, and it is just a case of when it's right, and the right one will come around eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. So were you really fixed on area and property type, or were you?
We were quite open, and I think you have to be quite open to that, particularly as a first-time buyer. There's a lot of first-time buyers out there, particularly in Edinburgh. It's a popular place. People want to buy their first homes here. So with that, there is that element of competition. And I think for us, predominantly, we had a kind of wider area in mind. But it was more, okay, what's around us? Have we got, for us, it was supermarket was important to be close by, things like the gym, kind of outdoor space, all these sorts of things were things that were looking, important for us. But also things like commuting, we both work in the centre of town, so it's how long is too long for us to be on a bus and to work every morning, or, is there going to be areas that we can park the car? All these sorts of things were important for us in buying, and I think ultimately that's what it came down to. It wasn't just about the individual property itself, but was round about, and what other things are going on in the area that would appeal to us as first-time buyers, and having almost a kind of small town within a big city was important for us.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important to have almost like a checklist of things that you want, and then maybe some things that you're able to compromise on. But no, it's really interesting. So was there any obstacles that you've come up with? I know that you haven't moved in just yet. You're still in the process of completing missives and everything. But have there been any obstacles that have come up and that have cropped up and you thought, oh my gosh, I wasn't really prepared for that?
I think a lot of it comes down to kind of additional costs that we maybe hadn't considered before. Obviously, things like your legal fees are the kind of main one. Your land and building transaction tax, obviously, as first-time buyers, you get relief up to 175, but anything over that, you then start to pay the tax percentage. And I think that was something that might have slipped our mind initially. Which is again key, to keeping in mind, because ultimately that's unavoidable. You have to pay that. Yeah. When we started the process of applying for the mortgage, things like contents insurance, your building insurance, even things like life insurance that they obviously recommend that you have, that's something that we'd never considered to this point. But ultimately, when you factor those in alongside your mortgage payments every month, sometimes for people, if they haven't considered that, can take it over the affordability that they're willing to commit. So it's all these factors that play into it as well. And I think for us, that was a kind of reality of, it's not just the mortgage payment that you need to be concerned about. It's things like your council tax as well, council tax bands. We're changing band, which we initially hadn't considered. All these sorts of things, and it's trying to work out realistically, is this going to be affordable for us to still allow us to have a life? And be able to do what we want, go on holiday, and not just pay, absolutely everything out, at once and have no disposable income. That is the other thing, and kind of reassessing your budget. The mortgage broker as well had said, look, you can get lending kind of, 60, 70,000 more than what we were looking at, but it wasn't affordable. And I think that's an important thing for first-time buyers to keep in mind as well, is, that your mortgage broker could tell you can afford up to, 250,000, but actually that level might not be affordable for you. So it's trying to work out what is affordable, and the broker, will definitely help you kind of assess that based on, your outgoings at present.
Yeah, absolutely, because I know there's a lot of these mortgage calculators online, and I remember right at the start of when I was buying, you'd put in your combined salaries and things, and they'll look at them and go, oh my gosh, we could buy a huge house for this. And then when you actually go back and see what the monthly cost of that is, you think, oh, I would literally never leave my house. Yeah. I'd have to give up everything to be able to afford that. Yeah. So yeah, that's really important, and the importance of speaking to somebody who knows what they're talking about and can help you with that as well. So you maybe already covered this, but what are maybe some of the biggest lessons that you've learned throughout this process? Is there anything you would change? It can be something small or a bigger lesson.
I think probably we would have wanted a bit longer at the start to plan. I think for us, it just worked out that the property came up that we were looking for. And we had to act very quickly. The property had been on the market for less than a week, and it was very much, we need to go now or we may not get this. And I think for us, we didn't have the chance to plan. You know, it was almost, this is what's happening, and everything moved quite quickly. And I think for us, it was maybe take a breather. It is overwhelming. This whole process is very daunting, especially for people who haven't done it before. As well as, you know, read the home reports. The home reports are crucial. You know, again, from a purchase negotiator point of view, it's the first thing that I tell my clients is, have you read the home report and do you understand the contents of the home report? That home report will be what you rely on for the whole, you know, legal process, and making sure that there's no areas in that could potentially, you know, cause you legal difficulty with getting lending, or also any kind of financial implications further down the line, you know, any repairs that need done, and that sort of thing. So I think, you know, taking the time to read the home report properly, and making sure that you completely understand that, because, you know, it's not something that people will understand, especially first-time buyers. It's a document that people may not have ever read before or understand its contents. You know, things like construction type as well are major. You know, you can see a property that you really like, but actually that might have an impact on your lending. You know, not all construction types are acceptable by all lenders. You know, so it's getting the understanding of that ahead of, you know, you committing to the property. And making sure that you're 100% happy, you know, your purchase negotiator or your solicitor is happy, and also your mortgage lender, and that there's going to obviously be no issues going forward. And another thing I think as well is just patience. I think when we got the offer accepted, it's very much, what's the next step? What happens now? And a lot of it is silence. You know, there's nothing happening for the first kind of 4 to 5 weeks. It's very normal to hear nothing. And a lot of people, you know, sometimes, you know, think, oh, should we be doing this? You know, what's the next steps? But actually, you know, there's nothing that does happen. You know, the mortgage, we're waiting on the offer coming in from the lender. You know, you're waiting on the kind of solicitor being in touch with the details of, you know, the next steps. It's very much, you go from very fast, you know, having to offer very quickly, everything has to be done with a matter of urgency, to then silence. And that's difficult, you know, for you to understand sometimes as well, because you go from such a fast-paced, you know, activity for, you know, 3, 4, 5 months to then nothing. And it's an adjustment. And I think that is important for first-time buyers to keep in mind, is that, you know, silence, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. It's just that is part of the process, and having that bit of patience as everything will work out and everything will come as it needs to. It is just part of the process.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that, especially for first-time buyers, if you've never done it before, it can feel like, oh my God, am I getting ignored? But it's actually, yeah, it's just part of the process. And I think that is also good to acknowledge that, you know, it can be really fast-paced at the start. I know that some people can take a lot longer. I think that's people who are, you know, can be really prepared or are very specific on what they're looking for. But I was the exact same with you. I was very, very fast-paced, and then, ages with radio silence. But so I think it's important to acknowledge that everyone is different, but that from that offer acceptance stage, it does slow down a lot more, and it's hopefully a lot less stressful. I think people start to, you know, you're still uptight until you get the keys. It can be a really stressful time, but once you've got that offer accepted, you can take your foot off the gas a wee bit. Perfect. I've just got one more thing to ask. How would you describe maybe the market just now for, you know, for first-time buyers? Did you find that everything has been quite fast in terms of selling times, or have you been?
I mean, you've got your mix, you know, ultimately you've got your popular areas, you know, things like your Leith, you know, kind of style areas, you know, your Portobello, you know, these markets are generally fast-paced. You know, that there's a lot of people that want to buy in these areas. So ultimately with those, you know, they are fast-paced. You know, the kind of further out the city you go, you often find that it's maybe not as quick. You know, don't get me wrong, properties are still selling very fast. You know, Edinburgh as a whole is, you know, it's a growing market, and it always does, you know, surprise people, I think, at how quickly properties do sell. But yeah, it's a fast-paced market to an extent, but also, you know, what I tell all my clients as well is don't just rush it. You know, don't just because you've seen a property that you're interested in, you don't rush it, because ultimately have the time to think about it. If it goes in the meantime, it's not meant to be, but don't rush into making the decision and have any regrets that you've potentially not been back to view it again before them, you know, because ultimately once an offer's accepted, you won't get into view it again until the misses are concluded, and at that point it's too late. So making sure that you've covered all the bases at your viewings, that you're completely satisfied that if you offer in this property, you're going to be excited and you're going to be happy when that offer's accepted, and you're not going to have any regrets further down the line. That is important. You know, it is fast paced, but it's obviously being realistic with it as well, and making sure that you're kind of satisfied with the property and not just offering for the sake of there's a closing date set tomorrow and I want to offer, but actually I've still got some doubts in the back of my mind.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think that's everything that I was wanting to ask you. I think we've answered all your questions. Was there anything else that you wanted to maybe give any advice to first-time buyers if anyone is in the midst of that hunting for their property?
I think enjoy it, take it in. It's the first time and the only time in your life that you're going to buy your first home. And amongst the stress and the anxiety of everything, you'll look back in a year's time when you're in your new home and realise, you know, that was an experience that I'm never going to have again. And I think that is the most important thing, is enjoy it. You know, make the most of it, and just it's a new experience, it's a learning opportunity, and you know, make the most of every moment and you know, every opportunity that comes up as a result.
Yeah. No, I think that's really great advice. Thank you so much,
No
Caitlin.
problem, thanks so much.
Really appreciate it. If you've got any other questions or you are looking to buy your first property, you can head to espc.com and you can sign up for property alerts like Caitlin mentioned to help find your first property. So thanks very much for watching.